Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Recently, on both these pistols, we completed a qualification drill that I created, the Psalms 144 drill. And first off, I do want to say, some people may question whether this drill is a good kind of standard for figuring out where you're at in shooting and things like that. And I will say, I just looked at the FBI qualification drill, that they shoot, and my drill, all in all, is quite a bit harder than their drill is. So I have to say that the par time standard of 5 seconds on every string is slightly harder than what the qualification gives you on the FBI drill, I think. And I think that's a good thing, because their drill is a little bit too forgiving on time, in my opinion, and some of the situations and strings that I have in my drill is slightly harder than the FBI drill. Now, that being said, my drill is not extremely hard. I will put a picture of my drill up on this video, screenshot, so you can see it. My drill is not very hard. It's made for the standard concealed carry person, church security person who wants to kind of keep their skills in check and just make sure they're where they need to be. It's not saying that they excel. It's just saying, hey, I'm good enough to carry this gun proficiently and be accurate enough with it to use it. And, if you didn't do well at all in my drill, it'd be a good sign that maybe you need to either switch weapons or do more training or whatever you need to do to make yourself more proficient with a handgun. So, that being said, we did both of these guns we did the drill with on the same day, back to back. And so I have to say that, with that being said, I did do slightly better with the XF Pro, but I also shot the XF Pro second, so I had warmed up with Daniel. And once you've shot the same drill one time, you kind of always tend to shoot it better the next time you shoot it. Maybe not every time, but usually that's the case. So I come in cold with the Daniel, shot it pretty good. I also penalized myself a little bit more because my timer wasn't working properly. I did have a shot that was also a line breaker, but I counted it as a miss. It just barely touched the line, and I was afraid, well, these guys on my video may say that's not a line breaker, but it really did break the line, so I would consider it a count, really. But I went ahead and took that score off. So that being said, if I would have shot this second, I think I would have done better with it. And since I shot this one second, I did better with it. However, let's kind of get into the thoughts a little bit. Daniel H9 versus the XF Pro. I like to ramble, so we're at 3 minutes, and now we're finally getting to kind of the roots of this comparison. Now, the neat thing is, and one reason why I wanted to do this, and it just happened to work out to where I could because we shot them both on the same day, so we're able to tell some differences. But these are both metal framed, metal gripped striker fire handguns that are both designed for the concealed carrier that wants to carry something a little more bougie than your standard Glock or M&P. And I think both these guns are designed to do that in that kind of way and be a little more visually appealing, a little more cool factor. And that's what these guns do well. However, it's a very interesting thing to note that when it comes to budget, this is half of the budget, would take up half the budget that this takes up. That's all I'm going to say, because y'all know how this platform is. But yes, half the budget of this one. All in all, I do want to say really quick that I still prefer the Daniel Defense, even though I shot this one better that day. Being that I shot it second, I still prefer the Daniel Defense slightly over the XF Pro. A little more refinement, and yes, it could be refined even further. There's things they could do. They both had some of the same issues, and let's get into that real quick and say what I don't like about them, because they're almost identical in what I don't like. Number one, both of them had a little bit too heavy of a trigger out of the box. They both had pretty smooth triggers, but both triggers were a little heavy out of the box. Didn't really like that. Number two, you do have to worry about these grip screws and stuff coming loose, which I don't really love grip screws on carry guns, but they do have stuff like that on these pistols, so you have to think about that as well. Let's go add another negative, a slight negative. These are kind of independent platforms. That means that they don't have a lot of aftermarket, because this has a lot of Glock parts in it, but a lot of it is independent of Glock. So if you have to replace certain things on this gun, it's a little bit hard to replace, but they do have a lot of parts on their website. Daniel Defense does not have hardly any parts on their website to replace parts that you may break or lose or whatever. I'm sure their team over there at Daniel Defense would give you, the option to buy replacement parts, but it's just not on their website. It's not easy. It's not convenient. So I do not like that about the Daniel Defense at all. So that's one thing I don't like. But yeah, that's one of the negatives I would have to say about this particular platform, is that it also, let's just go into this real quick. The mag wells on both these guns are not too great to deal with. Neither one of them really has a lot of a flare. I would say the Daniel has, even though it's a way smaller grip, it has a slightly better bevel to the mag well than the XF Pro, but not by much. They're about the same as far as changing magazines. And yeah, that's kind of a negative for me, that they don't have options for mag wells for either one of these yet, so they need to get that out on the market. Also, both these guns came with plates that set a little bit higher than I would like, which I don't really prefer. And both of these guns came with sights that did not co-witness. Now, these sights have been replaced, so that it has higher sights that do co-witness. But this gun came with sights, kind of like this one, that they did not co-witness with the red dot. So that's another one of the negatives as well. I would say out of the box, though, just straight out of the box, this gun, a little bit less issues to kind of resolve and work out. That being said, this gun ran 100% out of the box, and I only fired a few rounds through it, and then I ported it, and that's when things kind of started going south a little bit with it. So it was really hard to tune this gun. It's got a very unique guide rod system, and the way the guide rod's designed, it's very unique. You can't replace it with anything else. So I had to figure out a way to tune this to work with ports, and that took a long time because the spring that was in it was not a very tunable spring. There's some springs that you can cut down, they work fine, but some springs are stiff enough to where you cut it down, it just don't work right. You cannot get it to tune properly, and that's kind of how the Daniel was. So we finally replaced one of the springs in here with a 1911 spring in this dual spring setup, and was able to get it running. So I think this is good from now on. We had no reliability issues out of either one of these platforms in our drill, which is great. This one really has had no reliability issues besides a couple failure to feeds when I first ported it and I didn't change the spring yet. I had a couple failures to feed, and I was like, well, I have to change the spring. I always do. Anytime you get ports on a gun of this kind of nature and this kind of size, you're going to have to tune your recoil spring system to allow, the energy, the lesser energy that's happening because of the ports, to run the gun all the way back and delay and allow the bullet from the magazine to come up and cycle into the chamber. So you're going to have to change that a little bit. And I think it's very important that you do those things in order to make it work reliably. So as far as the visual appeal of these guns, I have to kind of give it to the XF Pro. It's kind of if you like fancy, expensive serrations and barrels and colorful guns, this one definitely is over the top. If you like eloquent, just nice, refined look to it, I think the Daniel is very good at just hitting all the spots it needs to and having just the perfect design to be discreet and kind of mellow but still be very cool looking. It looks very John Wick like, in my opinion. I think this is something John Wick would carry, whereas this might be a bit much. He probably wouldn't carry the camo grips. Probably the bronze barrel maybe, but not the camo grips. I just don't think that's part of that. But yeah, so it depends on what style you like the most. Is this gun, yeah, I just think that this gun as a whole is a little bit better finished, but this gun is a little bit fancier. I don't know how to put that, but yeah, we've done trigger jobs on both these guns, so they're both really nice triggers out of the box now that we've worked on them. not out of the box, but now that we refine these trigger systems, they are better and they're pretty good. We'll show you that in a second. Let's go ahead and get some trigger pulls for you guys. I know I don't do this enough because, you know, I probably should do this more than I do on my channel. Let's show you guys real quick what this is getting now. Okay, that was 5 pounds. Let me clear that again. It's usually a little better than that, so I'm kind of surprised it's that high. This trigger is really hard to get because it's like once it breaks, you kind of end up pulling a little harder and end up making it a little worse than what it is. It's the same thing. Double check that, how that feels. Let's try this one more time. I think I might be scraping on the ground a little bit too. Yeah, it's the same thing. So right around 5 pounds. It is usually getting a little better than that. I don't know why today it's not. Maybe I need to clean out the trigger system a little bit more. Now this one is a little bit better trigger. Of course, the Daniel does have a shorter throw trigger and it's very smooth. But like I said, it's really hard to get that Daniel trigger down to really light numbers for some reason. Okay, this is 3 pounds, 8 ounces. This is an extremely light trigger now that we've done the trigger job on it. £3 pounds, 10 ounces. I think I pulled that a little extra. The problem I find with the Daniel on the trigger gauge is you end up pulling back, and when it actually clicks and drops the sear, I find myself pulling back a little bit harder, so I might be adding a little bit of weight to it, so that makes these things kind of hard. Let's also look at the weight without. Let's just do the weight without a magazine. I would do it with a magazine, but I don't think that really matters. So without a magazine, the XF Pro is 1 pound 19 ounce. No, wait, 1 pound 15 ounces. Sorry, kind of hard to see from this angle. 1 pound 15 ounces. So basically almost 2 pounds. 31 ounces. 31 ounces without a magazine, and this one is 1 pound 13 ounces. So this one is 1 pound 13 ounces, which is 29 ounces. Okay, so you've got about a 2 ounce difference, and you can definitely tell that when you hold it. I know that sounds crazy, but a 2 ounce difference can be felt in hand. This one does feel lighter. Let's show you kind of the profile of these guns so you can see kind of what you're going to be dealing with if you are choosing one over the other, since they're both metal frame striker fire guns. The Daniel is definitely thinner and more concealable, and that is something that is really cool about the Daniel Defense, is how thin it is. You don't realize how thin it is until you actually put it in your hand and actually shoot it. It is thinner than a single stack 1911 basically, and the grip and everything else is thinner, even though it is a double stack, than a single stack 1911. The grip is way shorter as well than a single stack 1911. As far as, well, let's show you this again. As far as the length of the guns go, the Daniel has a slightly larger slide as far as the length of the slide, but it is thinner like we said. But when it comes to the grip height, which is the most concealable part, the Daniel Defense, I'm trying to do this correctly, overall, because it has about the same grip size, but this back of this XF Pro actually protrudes, which is the most hard part to conceal. So yeah, the Daniel for concealability, I would say, is better for sure, and it's also a little, 2 ounces lighter, which does make a difference. So if you're going for concealability, the Daniel is slightly better. But the XF Pro is about the same size as a Glock 19. Very little differences. It may be 1/10 of an inch wider than a Glock 19, but is really close to your standard Glock 19, which everybody loves and carries so much. One of the most carried guns in the world today is the Glock 19, and this is really the same exact silhouette, frame, style of a Glock 19. Slightly different grip angles, slightly different materials, of course, but that's what this is designed after, and so it's very close. But I would say I give the edge for concealability to the Daniel Defense. Accuracy, I would say if you're shooting slow, then I think, and you're really trying to get tight groups, there's not been a more accurate pistol that I have than this one. The trigger, because of the weight, you cannot get this trigger down below 4.5 pounds. I've tried, and I've got it close to 4.5 pounds, and it was 4.5 pounds last time I checked. For some reason it's 5 right now. But if you go too light, then you start having problems with the springs in here, and it starts not wanting to reset and things like that. You can tune it, but it's just in its design, you don't want to tune it below 4.5, 5 pounds because of the nature of the trigger. But guys, still an awesome trigger, an awesome gun, very shootable. As far as and I need to kind of wrap this up. As far as the drill went, though, I did not sight this gun in as exact as I would like to, so that could have cost me some points. These were within 10 points of each other, within 8 points of each other. I think there's an 8-point difference on the win for this one. Yes, the other day when I shot the drill. But yeah, this one got 8 points less than this one. But to be fair, there was several things going on, and I didn't count a line breaker with this one, and the gun was not sighted in as well as this one, so that could have cost me about half an inch to the left shooting. It was shooting maybe half inch to the left further than it needed to be because I didn't sight it in properly. So it was almost a tie. It was almost a wash as far as performance goes. So which gun do you like the best? Please let me know in the comments below. As you can see in all the different angles, you know, how big the guns are. This one is significantly thinner, and it's even easier to tell in real life than on camera. But as far as the size, they're very similar, and as far as the way they're made, in the sense of striker fire, metal framed, you know, they're similar in that aspect. Of course, the insides are completely different, the design is completely different, but they do fall in kind of the same category. So I want to show you this, guys. This is half price, pretty much, of this one. We're not mentioning what those are, but that is a factor. So what would you prefer between these two, guys? Just let me know in the comments below. Please like and subscribe. God bless. Have a great day. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if there's anything I missed. This isn't a comprehensive review of either one of these pistols. It's just kind of showing you some differences I noticed because I shot them on the same day, under the same circumstances, with the same type of strings of fire, so I was able to kind of tell a difference between the two. And as far as going into that, you know, they feel almost the same. This one shoots a little softer, and I think it's a little bit easier to keep these thicker guns kind of centered on the target when you're pointing, because the thinner grip guns tend to point a little bit, I guess, not as specifically straight, so you might come up and kind of go to the right or the left a little bit easier. With a thinner gun, it's harder to have that natural pointing ability, and that could cost you a little bit, but it also costs you in concealability when you have these thicker guns. But yeah, these just tend to point really straight on and stay straight on while the gun is recoiling. I think these thicker guns, and that's one reason why Glocks are so loved. They've got a really thick grip, and that kind of keeps people that don't shoot very well on target a little bit easier, in my opinion. But as far as softness and recoil feel, this one might have a slight advantage, but because the ports are a lot larger and it has lost velocity because of that. This one shoots really nice velocities out of this barrel, and this one, it's adequate, but it's a little bit less velocity because of, you know, because of the ports, and it's a little heavier, so it definitely shoots a little bit softer, a little flatter than the Daniel, but not by much. They're very comparable. So I knew I needed to cover that before we wrap this up. But God bless. Have a great day. Guys, catch you later. Please like and subscribe. Please leave any questions or comments below. Have a good day.